Hello friends, so let's begin with today's poem, that is Invictus. Before this I have done coromandel fissures and today I am doing Invictus. And after Invictus I'll begin with a chapter. So one more poem for today and later after this I'll do a chapter. The reason behind choosing this poem is it's a very beautiful poem with a lot of meaning in it. It's a very meaningful poem. A poem that teaches you to be determined, to learn not to give up under the circumstances or whatever be the conditions. So here we have a beautiful poem, Invictus. Now if you look for the word Invictus, it is not an English word. The word Invictus is a Latin word which means unconquered. The poet has used this word unconquered. Now let's know a little bit about the poet. The poem Invictus is written by William Ernest Henley, an English poet, editor and critic of the Victorian era. Victorian era, when I say, it means the phase when England was ruled by Queen Victoria. At the age of 12, a poet, William Ernest Henley, was diagnosed with tubercular arthritis, that is tuberculosis in bones, because of which it necessitated the amputation of one of his legs. Amputation means one of his leg had to be cut off from his body, otherwise it would increase and probably this would cause his life. So to save his life it was necessary to cut one of his legs just below the knee, and because of that the poet became lame in one leg. As he healed in the infirmary, the hospital, and you must definitely, if you think what could a person be going through at that moment when he has been all safe and sound and good and healthy, and then suddenly an illness comes up because of which he has lost his leg. What kind of trauma, what kind of sorrow, what kind of depression, sadness he might have gone through. But this man was the one who decided that whatever be the circumstances, he will never give up. And his difficult phase only gave him more strength. He developed inner strength. He developed perseverance. He decided not to give up to fate, not to give up to this challenge, to this handicap, but to rise up in his life. Okay, and there he started writing poems, and this poem Invictus was written at that time when he was hardly 12 years old, healing in the infirmary. So let's see how he talks about this inspiration of being unconquered, he himself, and he's teaching others also to be unconquered. So before we begin with the poem, a quick reading of the poem Invictus by William Ernest Henley. Invictus is a Latin word meaning unconquered. So let's see why the poet uses this word to describe himself. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank God. I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquered soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the burgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horrors of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. So here we are with the line-wise explanation. Okay. Invictus by William Ernest Henley. So Henley, who was undergoing the treatment, amputation of one leg, the hopelessness, the despair, the sorrow, and then his hope, his desire to rise up, his persevering spirit. Let's see what he says. In the first stanza he says, out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. So out of the night, in the very first line, poet has used the term night. Night here stands for darkness, sorrow, hopelessness, depression, failure. It can be all the negativity, the darkness. It's talking about the darkness of life. Black as the pit from pole to pole. What is that pit which he's talking about, which is black from pole to pole? He is talking about hell. Hell. Nothing can be dark, nothing can be more fearsome, nothing can be more scary, more dreary than hell. So he says that phase of his life was like night, full of hopelessness and depression. It was black as the pit. He compares his sorrow, his phase of those days when he was in the infirmary, as dark and fearsome as hell, as scary, like a nightmare. It was scary, it was horrible, it was horrid, like hell. So what is happening? He is scared, he is hopeless, he is depressed, he is very sad, he is afraid. All these things are going on. But then, did these things took over the poet? No, it did not. The night, the black of the pit, the hell, the hopelessness, the depression, the darkness, the fear, the sorrow, all these things could not take over Henley. Why? Because in the later lines he says, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. I thank whatever gods may be. He says, he is not mentioning a particular god. He says whosoever God is. So somewhere it puts a question mark here whether he was a believer of God or an atheist. We'll think about this later. But he says, but if he's talking about God, definitely he's not an atheist. But he's not specifying any God. So maybe this point can be suggesting as a universal appeal to any God. Your God, my God, whomsoever a person believes in. So he says, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. So he says, I thank God for this soul that he's given me. What kind of soul? An unconquerable soul, an indomitable spirit, a spirit which doesn't fail. So in spite of the hopelessness, in spite of depression, fear, darkness, sorrow, tragedy, misery, amputation of one of his leg, all these sorrows in his life, he says, I am still standing upright. I am not defeated. My soul is still unconquerable. Fine, my body has lost a part of it, but my soul is still one. It's still complete. I am not going to give up under any circumstance. Further he says, in the next stanza, in the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bulgionings of chance, my body is bloody, but unbowed. In the fell clutch, in the miserable or difficult situations of life, in the fell clutch of circumstance, in the difficult situation of life, the miserable situations of life, the sorrows, the miseries, he's actually talking about the phase when he was lying in the bed, when his leg was amputated, he has lost a body part, he has become from whole to a challenged person, to a disabled, but he says the body is disabled, not my soul. So in the fell clutch of circumstance, the difficult situation of life, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Winced, it's like a display of fear, like when you hear a loud noise, so you're just aback, you're taken aback, you're shaken, you blink your eyes, so all those are symbols of fear. So he says, in spite of this difficult situation, I have not winced, nor have I cried aloud. Cried aloud in the sense, I have not complained at all. I have not complained at all. So I have not complained, I have not winced, I have not complained about anything. Under the bulgionings of chance. Now what is bulgioning of chance? Severe blows by fate. So in spite of the severe blows by fate, fate has disgraced me, destroyed me, depressed me, subdued me, oppressed me, did everything that could put me down. Still I am standing. I'm standing straight upright, raised, no chance of bowing. So under the bulgionings of chance, severe blows of fate. Here he's talking about the loss of his leg and the miseries that he faced because of that. My head is bloody but unbowed. I believe this to be the best line in the poem. My head is bloody but unbowed. So he says, I have been battered by wounds of life, shattered and broken by the circumstances that came in my life. Although it happened, but I have not given up. Okay, so I have been wounded, I have been battered, but I have not given up. I will rise. Today I am in bed, but I am surely going to rise high, higher than what I could have done otherwise. This talks about his indomitable spirit, that he is not ready to give up under any circumstance. Moving on further, he says in the next stanza, beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. Beyond this place of wrath and tears, beyond this place of anger and frustration. Wrath is anger and frustration. So he says beyond this, again, if I move ahead all day, everywhere, if you see there's sorrow, there's pain, there's trouble. So along with this, beyond this, there is more. Anger is there. Why do you think he's having anger? Why frustration? But obvious, any person who faces this, what he has faced, where he has lost his body part, his leg, he can't walk without support. So definitely he will have a lot of frustration. He will become bitter. He will become free. He will be filled with anger. So he says that moment, that part of his life where he's filled with anger, where he's filled with frustrations. He says beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace. So what is the loom? Loom is rising, threateningly, something which is rising, and the image of a devil rising and creating fear in your mind. The image, you can just imagine the image of a horrible ghost rising, a spirit, an evil spirit rising, and it's slowly rising from small to big, and we are getting scared of it. So here, what is looming? Threateningly rising, the fear of death, the horrors of shade. So here's the fear of death, that my leg is amputated. What will happen? Will I survive? Will I not? Even if I survive, will I be able to live without it? How will I manage? The fear. It's better I die. Why should I live? Why is life letting me live? I don't want to live. So all those fear, the horrors of shade. He recalls the threat of danger he had faced in the yesteryear. So every moment when I will be amputated, when I will be operated, how painful it's going to be. It's better to die. What kind of life will it be? So all that threat, all the danger, all the sorrow that probably was going on in his mind, he is talking about it. He's thinking about it. So it's looming like sorrow. So every fear, every sorrow, every heart-wrenching problem that he was going through is rising like a devil, like a ghost, and he's scared. He becomes scared more and more. And yet the menace of the years, menace is the threat and danger, everything of the yesteryears, of the years of the yesteryears. Yesteryears means the previous years, the bygone years. So every moment of fear, every moment of giving up. Do you think he was very firm and persevering at that very moment? No, at that very moment he would have been scared. He would have thought of giving up. He would have thought of just, no, I can't. But then he thought, it's not going to work like this. Just, no, I can't. I will have to. I can and I will. So definitely before that I can and I will, there had been, I don't want to, I can't, I will not be able to. So he's talking about those years where he was scared. He wanted to give up. He thought of death. He was scared. But he says all these things came and came. But what dominated? These things came, and they later went away. But what remained and dominated was finds and shall find me afraid. So whatever be the circumstance, let sorrow, let fear, let trouble, let depression, hopelessness come my way. Let everything come. But what will always be there and dominate me and my life is being unafraid. So he says he has been unafraid throughout the ordeal. Ordeal is all the troubles. So all these troubles came in his life and he faced them. He was scared. But then what was dominant in his life, what was dominating his life was that never to give up. I will not give up on my life. I am not going to give up at the hands of my fate. I will not resign to my fate. I am going to write my own destiny. He has been unafraid throughout the ordeal of life and will continue to show a brave face. He is all set. Moving on to the last stanza, what he says, let's see further. I hope you can get it very clear. Okay, yeah. Further he says, it matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. It matters not how straight the gate. This line is taken from Bible. Straight the gate and narrow the path. So here he says, straight the gate. Actually, it's the gate straight. Here talks about the path which is full of troubles and difficulties. So he says, definitely for him, he knows that the path of his life is not going to be a bed of roses. He is very sure, with a challenge, with a physical disability, he knows that life's path is not going to be filled with roses for him. It is not going to be a smooth road for him. It is surely going to be a difficult task, a road beset with difficulties. But he is still prepared for it. He says it doesn't matter how difficult and full of trouble the path of life is going to be for me. I am ready. I am ready to tread the path. Tread means to walk. So let the path be as difficult as possible. Whatever God has destined for me. The most difficult path, the most difficult path. I am ready to walk on it. Whatever be the circumstance. Remember, my head is bloody but not bowed. So whatever be, however difficult the path is, I am ready to tread the path of life. Okay, so the first line. How charged with punishment the scroll. Now here, he affirms that how the path may be difficult for him. So one difficulty here, he is talking about the difficulties not only in the present life, but also in the life hereafter, that is after death. He says, even if my scroll, the scroll of my life, that is the scroll in which our good deeds and bad deeds are written, according to which God will punish us or reward us. So he says, even if in my life my path is filled with difficulties, or after my death, the letter, the scroll of my life is filled with punishments. How many punishments are destined for me? He is ready. He is ready for everything. My life is going to be difficult. Okay. After death, God has destined punishments for me, for my wrongdoings. Okay. So he is prepared for everything. He affirms, he says, whatever be it, he affirms that whether a person believes in heaven or hell, or he doesn't believe, the plain fact is that you are in charge and in control of your own fate. So let it be whatever life is going to give me. Let it be whatever death is going to give me. But I believe that I am the master of my fate. I am the master of my fate, my destiny. And I am the captain of my soul. This means I am the owner of my destiny. I am the writer of my destiny. My life will be that, what I make. I can't rely on others, or I can't just give up that I am a disabled person or I'm a challenged person, so let me give up. No, he says, if I decide, I will be like that. But if I decide not to give up, nothing can stop me. So I have decided not to give up. I am the captain of my soul. So whatever be the circumstance, I have prepared myself to fight back with every circumstance. So I am the maker, I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. So it does not matter who you are, a believer or not. You can overcome dark times by being brave and never losing faith in your own soul's strength. And believe it, that God helps those who help themselves. This is the most important maxim of life, that God helps those who help themselves. And here the poet is all set and ready. He's all set and ready to help himself. So surely God is going to be there to help him. So what do we see? This is an inspirational poem. It's an expression of the poet's strong resolve or decision and courage to face life, regardless of how dismal, depressing the situations may be. Even in the most difficult circumstances, he refuses to give up the fight. Whenever fate has occasioned his suffering, whenever fate has added to his suffering, made him suffer more, he fought back and he chose never to resign himself to dictate his fate, never to resign to the destiny, never to resign to his fate, never to give up in life. In fact, lying in the infirmary, battling with his ailment with great strength and perseverance, he could not forget the horrors of past, whatever sorrows and miseries he faced. Remembering all these things, he says that life has taught me only one thing. The sufferings have taught him only one thing. In fact, the sufferings have made him even stronger. It has only enhanced him and made him even more persevering, made him enhanced his resolve, his decisions to fight back. He is all set, all prepared. So there we see that the poet is a very optimist person. He is an optimist. He is a positive thinker. He believes in the inner strength. He believes that if you agree to fight, nothing can let you down. A quick recap of the poem. Invictus, which means unconquered. And who is unconquered here? The poet himself. We can take the poem on the basis of the poet himself. It can also be taken at the level of every person who refuses to bow down to fate, who refuses to give up to fate, who is ready to fight with circumstances, who believes that he is the maker of his own destiny. So what he says, out of the night, that is the hopeless and depression that covers him. And what kind of hopeless and depression? It is as dark as the hell. Okay, that kind of depression has covered him. But what is he saying? He doesn't bother. The depression may be sad, sorrow, hopelessness. It is dark as hell. It's fearsome. But he thanks God for giving him an unconquerable soul. So whatever difficulties came his way, his soul has always been unconquerable. He has always prepared himself not to give up. I am ready to fight. Let whatever be. Let whatever come the circumstances. In the fell clutch of circumstances, the difficult situation of his life, I have not winced nor cried. I have never been afraid, or I have complained or cried about my circumstances. Remember the circumstances? His leg was amputated. He had lost a leg. Under the burgeonings of chance, severe blows of fate. What could be more severe than you lose a body part? A leg. He'll not be able to walk without support. So he says, under the burgeonings of chance, even that, to that extent, life has given me sorrows and miseries, to that extent where a body part of mine was amputated. In spite of that, he says, where he is completely battered, he is wounded. It's not only physically but even mentally. But he says, I'm unbowed. I don't give up. I am ready to still fight back. Beyond this place of wrath and tears. So what happens? All these things probably had made him bitter for that time. Anger and frustration, sorrow. He has become bitter. He's definitely, although he's recovering in the infirmary, he's sad. He's depressed. He's lost something very important. Looms of the horrors of shade. And there was this fear of death. The fear of survival. What will happen? How will he survive? Is life worth living now after losing a body part? And then yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. So in spite of all these things, what did he find? That in spite of these challenges, these miseries, he finds himself unafraid and all set and ready to fight. He is not the person to give up to fate or destiny. He believes himself to be the maker of his own destiny. It matters not how straight the gate. He says, it doesn't matter to me if my life is filled with difficulty. The path of my life, the road of my life is filled with miseries, with difficulties. However difficult my path may be, the road of life may be for me, I am going to walk. I am not going to stop myself. I will continue to walk. How charged with punishment the scroll, and how many punishments are destined for me after death. I don't bother. I might have done something wrong in life. God may punish me for that. I'm not afraid. If I've done something wrong, let God punish me for that also. I am not afraid of anything, whether this life or life after death. He affirms in that. I am the master of my fate and the captain. So whatever has been, whatever will be, but I believe I'm the master of my fate. I am the maker of my own destiny. My life, my destiny is in my hand. So he affirms whether a person believes in heaven and hell or not. The plain fact is that individual is in charge of and in control of his own fate. So very beautifully he teaches us never to give up in life and persevere. Perseverance is the only way to succeed in life, because God always helps those who help themselves. That's all for today. Thank you.